Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is December 27, 2024. You're listening, watching the Daily AI Show live. And right off the top, I want to apologize because we are late. But, it's just one of these things we're trying to roll and make it through. The podcast platform that we're using, Talk Studios, seems to believe we don't have an account. So it's something on their end, and we are trying to pivot through it. So we have me and Beth on the screen. We have me and Jimmy right now, and we're trying to get Beth and Andy in as well to be in the conversation. So sorry about the delay there, but here's what we have going on today, and we'll try to get more people in. Jimmy will work on that on the back end. What we're talking about today is, were we right in 2024? So let me explain. Back in episode 76, so like right before Thanksgiving of 2023, we did a fun show where we're like, hey, here's our guesses of what we think is going to be happening in 2024. And so we sort of had a list. Now, that list was somewhat overshadowed a little bit because at the time we had just learned about Sam Altman being ousted out of OpenAI. And if you remember back to last year, hey Beth, if you remember back to last year, there was over the Thanksgiving break, there was a lot of will he stay, will he go to Microsoft? So really the first part of our show last year was talking about, hey, what happens? What does Microsoft do if they now have Sam Altman and the 76 people from OpenAI? Does OpenAI still exist? So that part of the show, we're just going to compartmentalize and say that doesn't really matter. We all know the story now. It's been well over a year. Sam is obviously back at OpenAI, and things really settled down right around Thanksgiving of last year. But for the rest of that show, we got in and we started talking about some of the other predictions we have. And so we thought it'd be fun today, this Friday, to go through our predictions and see if we were right. I think some of these are in a gray area where we're semi-right, semi-wrong, and there's some in-betweens. So we'll talk about that. And then on Monday's show, we're going to give you our new predictions for 2025. Tell you what we think is coming. Let's see if we can get any closer to it. And of course, next year, we'll do the same thing where we review and see how close we came to some of them. So at the moment, we have Beth and Jimmy. I know we're trying to also get Andy in as well. I know, Jimmy, you're working on that on the back end, but welcome to Beth. Welcome back, Jimmy. Beth, can you hear us and all that? Let's just check your mic real quick.
I'm muted. Hey,
yeah.
Yes.
All right. So again, apologies for being late here, but thank you, Justin, Jude, Gwen. I see you guys. Gwen said ChatGPT was down yesterday. I didn't even know that. I didn't see that. I'm off on break at the moment. Upgrade. We don't need no stinking upgrades. Jude is saying, yeah. If you have been with us, like Jude and Gwen and Justin and Jen, who's not here at the moment, maybe Jeff, you might be a little bit newer. I'm not sure on it. You've watched us go through the AI streaming, podcast dilemmas. We started with StreamYard, and it got bought out. There were some glitches. We thought this isn't really going to be the future home for us. We went over to not Streamlabs. We went over to Restream, I think it was. And we tried that, and that almost immediately didn't work as well as we thought it would. And now we're on our third, if not fourth platform, because I can't remember if we tried Riverside as well, but we did. Jimmy's saying, yep, we definitely did. And now we're on Streamlabs, and
we tried Riverside, and it was so not going to work for us that we didn't even try a live version. So you guys never experienced it.
Yep. So this is actually a good quick segue into the show before we get into it. So today I'll actually be doing a hosted panel for AI Festivus, which is a really great 2-day AI free virtual seminar that's going on between today and tomorrow. So today's 12/27, and then tomorrow on Saturday as well. Hosted by some good friends of ours that are really just putting on a good one. So if you want to go learn more about that, aifestivus.com, go sign up, enjoy. There's so many different ones. I'll personally be speaking about AI and podcasting, go figure, right? And the trials and tribulations, but talking about how it's easier than ever to get started with podcasting using AI. I'm on a panel with some other people, and my actual time on that will be at 2:15 p.m. today. So if you want to go back and hang out with me again, you can come join that live panel. But go to aifestivus.com. You can see the whole schedule on there. Okay, so go do that. All right, let's get into our predictions. And one of the first ones we talked about that I think is an interesting one was basically, in so many words, Microsoft Copilot is going to grow and become more popular with businesses. And I think this is an interesting one to sort of start on, because I think depending on who you talk to, you get a different answer on whether Microsoft Copilot has been successful or not. So if we just look at some of the facts, the 365 Copilot, it got major updates this year. Excuse me. It got expanded admin controls. It had some extended access to the Copilot Academy, and they got some more chat function that went into the Outlook and different things like that. Excuse me one second. Sorry, didn't want to have you guys have to hear me clear my throat there. But we just kind of talked about Copilot this week too. Has Copilot actually been successful? I think coming out of where we were talking about last year, especially thinking that Sam Altman and other people might be going to Copilot, because remember when we did this prediction show, we weren't sure what was happening to OpenAI. So we might have had a little bit more of a lens there. But if Carl was here, I feel confident saying that he wouldn't be recommending Copilot to any business at this point. That it is very hard in the traditional Microsoft way. It's very hard to get in there and make adjustments to do anything of real value, and it's hard to move around in it. And that a lot of people, at least businesses we've been speaking to, feel like they're a bit stuck with it, that it really hasn't lived up to the hype. So I don't know, Jimmy or Beth, do you guys have any takes on this? I think looking at what our predictions were, and also looking at the lens we were looking through at the time, I'm going to say that this one probably has not panned out as big as maybe I thought it was going to in 2024.
So in a what did we get wrong about AI in 2024 show, I would say that this is like absolutely number one thing that we got wrong.
Okay.
And I think everybody got it wrong. I mean, not the ride or die Microsoft haters, right? You called it, but it's so bad, right? It's so hard to use. It's so not. It's not even as helpful as the tech used at the exact same tech. When you use it on OpenAI's site, it's just much more user friendly. Like whatever Microsoft did to make it Microsoft brand seemed to hamper it and make it way more complicated. And I think we were all hoping that it would be that it would be a seamless integration, right? Just put a little AI in your stuff and it would work. But it's clearly harder to do because Google also hasn't been able to make their Gemini integration into their suite seamless either, right? There is some sort of stuff in the tunnel that moves from the AI to the actual application that is interfering with whatever well, I think with their intention, but certainly my desire, right? What I want it to do for me, it is absolutely not doing. That would not be Eric. That would not be Brian's dog, Aaron Grievances. That would be the family's dog that I'm staying with. Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. It's obviously going to be that kind of Friday show, which is why I started laughing, because I was like, that makes sense. That adds up totally. Yeah, that's funny. What I was going to say is I'm just on your same wavelength, Beth, and I think you've probably worked with it more than me. The longest time I really worked with Microsoft was back at my former job, and we were in the business analytics. It was a business analytics consulting company. And so there was a lot of 365. And man, diving into that and moving things around, this is like 2017, 2018. It's not terribly long ago, but it always felt like I was in 2008 or 2004. Like it just had that Microsoft look like, man, they haven't done anything to make this UI easier. You're 17 windows deep into something to change one sort of, one toggle that should be super easy to find or whatever. And I've always felt like it was just such a pain. My wife works with SharePoint, which I also had to work with. And I felt SharePoint was always like some sort of lift. It shouldn't be this hard. And so when you take something that people are generally probably dissatisfied with the UI UX of, like a 365, and then you layer on top of AI, I think where I was probably coming from a year ago was, oh, this might make some sense out of the mess, because it is deeply hard to find this toggle or this thing on SharePoint or whatever. And AI can do a really good job of sorting through things very quickly, has the potential to, and coming back with answers. And so I probably got swept up in a bit of the initial hype of Copilot 2, which was, hey, this is actually really, really helpful. And by the way, I think they will eventually get there, which is if I have one central search bar, or even, audio now, if I'm able to just speak to it and say, this is what I'm looking for, and it pulls up the top 5 results and maybe pulls me right into that SharePoint file and says, like, what do you want to do or whatever, to make my life easier as a 365 user. And then also layer in the stuff that comes up with 4.0 and the way that, Bing Chat and Copilot and all the advancements of an LLM layered on top of that. I thought it would be this really good RAG system plus this, what we already know to be, our LLMs. And that, I'm not in it every day, so I don't want to speak from a point of like, oh, I use this every day and it's awful. I think Carr would have more to say about that. But I'm just not impressed with how far it's gotten, because to me, they just put a wrapper over something that probably is inherently flawed a little bit. And so I think what probably needs to happen is there needs to be more changes to the 365 side that has nothing to do with AI, or it's such a mess and it's so big that trying to put AI on top of it would be akin to building a Tesla from the ground up as an EV versus trying to take a Honda Accord and retrofit it to be an EV model and platform. And so we've seen that with the EV cars, right? Like one has a distinct advantage over the other because you're starting from scratch. You're starting from the skateboard and building up with the purpose of it always being an EV. And that's kind of the way I look at Microsoft. It's this old institutionalized, like, it's the Buick LeSabre, and it's fine. It runs like an ICE vehicle. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. But now you want it to be this super modern thing. And I find that that's where the problem lies. What do you think, Beth?
I think you're right, except that I think that's what Microsoft has done, but I think it's the wrong analogy,
Okay.
right? Because like I agree with you. I don't agree with what Microsoft is doing. I think they are trying to make an EV out of whatever you called it before, but I think really all we wanted was like keyless ignition. Right? Like,
Yeah.
just give us the tiny little interface that means we don't need to know which menu or the thing, right?
Yep.
Just give us a natural language, like, please sort this from A to Z on this column. Or what I use, the majority of what I use in a spreadsheet now is write a formula that does this for me.
Yeah.
And like it can sort of do that, but neither Google nor Microsoft have really like understood what we want, right? Like what
Seems
am
like
I
it.
trying to do when I open this page,
Yeah.
and what's the easiest way to get me there? And it's wild how much like it seems so obvious to me as a user. It's
Yeah.
wild, but it's like, wow. I mean, it's not like you missed the target. It's like we're not on the same range.
Right. Yeah. I agree with you. And I want to bring in Andy's comment. Andy, by the way, would love to be here live with us. And like I said, at the top of the show, we're having podcast issues that are a little bit outside of our control. So Andy just wasn't able to get logged in. But I want to bring in his comment. He said, sadly, many businesses already on Office 365 wouldn't think of using an alternative source of AI tools, presuming better integration. 100%. That's sort of that's kind of what makes me upset about this as I think about it is you do have a captive audience. You do have many, many businesses that are buried deep in Microsoft products and suites in 365, and it would be a huge lift to leave there and go to some competitor or whatever. And so then
Yeah.
you have Microsoft come out and they tell you all these amazing things about Copilot and what it's going to do to you, and you go, wow, this is what we've been waiting for. But then they get you to sign up for a year long, like we've already talked about this week, a year long subscription, only to find out that it can do a fraction of what they sort of said its capabilities are, which just leaves a lot of companies feeling like, I just spent a whole lot more per person thinking this was going to be valuable, and now I'm paying for this all year, and it's really honestly just slightly better in some areas than what I had currently, you know?
So I'm going to make the point that I heard Paul Reitzer make on their podcast recently, which is acknowledge that this is a sunk cost, but now also acknowledge that if you are waiting for 365 to catch up, because you spent money on it,
Mhm.
you are falling behind,
Yeah.
right? So this is like, okay, nope, right? Like go out and get team or enterprise accounts of ChatGPT for everybody. Go, like there's some pretty like Perplexity. Like decide, have your tech team decide what the alternative is. It's not necessarily going to be integrated, although ChatGPT, Claude, and I think ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini can all integrate with your Google Docs,
Yeah.
right? I mean Gemini because it's sitting in the same place.
Right.
Um, but do that. Don't let the fact that you have invested in 365 Copilot create a scenario in which you are falling behind what is possible in AI working with, like, figuring out prompts, figuring out the kinds of things that it's good at. That's a sunk cost. You've already paid it. I did too. It's a bummer for sure. But the opportunity is now. And that would be throwing skill after bad money. I'm mixing metaphors in a massive way right
I knew what
here.
you meant there. Well, here, let me bring in Greg's comment, and then we'll move on to, because we do have other things where we write about in 2024. But I do want to bring in Greg Walters. He said AI is magnifying glass like most digitization projects, and Microsoft is a hot mess. So AI makes the mess messier. It's like looking at the world through an 8-bit realm of DOS. Microsoft is still DOS. So I think I mean, look, we're having people talk
Good
about
point.
this in the comments and saying basically the same as us. Okay. But you did have a good pivot though, Beth, because you mentioned Anthropic and Gemini, or aka Google, which is one of our other predictions. So we said, and I'm going to say collectively, one of us said this on the show, but as to who said it on the show, it probably may have been me. I'm not sure. But companies like Anthropic and Google may release tools that rival OpenAI's, potentially winning over users with better interfaces and customization. Okay. So this is a juicy one, because has Google or Anthropic potentially pulled users away from OpenAI based on what they can do? Now, this one's subjective because obviously, depending on what you're doing, if you're a coder, you might say to yourself, yeah, I definitely always use Claude now because it's superior to OpenAI. Both Google and Anthropic have continued to keep pace with OpenAI. Well, that's also a subjective, I guess, in terms of what they released. We can't go through all of them. That would be a different show. But obviously, Anthropic has released newer models. They released 3 models, then upgraded some of those models. We had Sonnet, Haiku, and Opus. In the opposite order, there's Haiku, Sonnet, Opus in terms of power. But then we had updates that brought that cost down. We also
Mhm.
had things in Claude or Anthropic, like projects that actually gave you a bit of almost a custom GPT type ability. But we also saw, just like we have Canvas and OpenAI, prior to that, we had the right side window
Artifacts.
artifacts. Thank you, inside of Claude. We also have computer. What is it called? Computer use. What is it's such a silly name, where you can do
Yeah.
it locally. Computer use. It's like
I feel
I always think I'm wrong because it's always like the worst name. It doesn't have a fancy name to it. It's just like Anthropic's computer use. You're like, is it? But that's leading the the area in terms of what might be agentic type workflows on your desktop. We know this is going to be a big story in 2025. So that's Anthropic. Google, I think we've done shows on this. Like Google has continuously deployed new innovative things with AI. Not all of them are going to like shake the world, but they continuously put stuff out. And I do feel like at least in the last quarter, they have corrected a little bit of their shiny video problem where people were getting wise to the fact that Google could make a really good splash flash video that wasn't really representative of what you were actually going to get, or it was so far in the future that nobody was really going to have access to it anytime reasonably soon. So they got everybody in a tizzy, or at least us, the people who care about AI, only to really find that we couldn't touch it, play with it, whatever. But Google's had a phenomenal 2024. So the
It,
question is, Beth or Jimmy, I know Jimmy, you're working hard on the back end too, is do you believe that Anthropic or Google have done enough in 2024 to pull people away from OpenAI? Do you think that's happened in this year? It's any significant amount?
I don't actually, because I think Google had a really tricky 2024. They moved from Bard to Gemini, right? They rebranded it.
Yeah. Was that in
The
2024? Probably was, wasn't it?
I feel
Bard
like
to
it was.
Gemini. Yeah, probably.
So if we're comparing it, we would have to look at ChatGPT and Gemini as the interface, right? So you're literally going to Gemini,
Mhm.
not Notebook LM, or not the AI Studio, or the other kinds of ways that you interact with Google's AI. And I don't feel like they have done enough with Gemini itself as the interface, comparable to ChatGPT, to pull people away. They also had the debacle of the continuing saga of the AI search. When you search Google, do you get like, how do you get that AI summary? What does it say? Does it move people to the sites, right? Are people happy that now that they're in the top rankings of Google's thing if people just read it and don't go, right? So I think Google is still really struggling. I don't think they've done enough to really pull people off of ChatGPT, because ChatGPT, you need to be significantly better than ChatGPT to pull people away.
Would you say the same about Claude?
I Claude like doesn't even register as a blip, but I do think Claude definitely pulled some people. I'm just not sure that it's enough, that outside of the AI bubble, that
Mm.
people notice it. Because again, when we look at the research or the surveys about like what are your opinions about AI and what are the AIs that you use, Claude doesn't even rank,
Mm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, what we're seeing is things like character AI, which has also had a rough year.
I was going to say that what's interesting to me, Beth, is you might be right about Claude not ranking. I definitely think a lot of people know what Claude is, and here's my reasoning for it. When OpenAI and ChatGPT went down,
It's
Claude went
true.
down.
Yep.
Yeah, for overuse, right?
Yep.
Immediately. So what did people do? They were like, "Oh my god, my first tool, right, is going to be
Right.
ChatGPT." It's Sora. Everything went down. Remember, for like 15 hours or something like that. It was a while. I think I said the notification at like 1 a.m. that they were back online. But I was trying to work on a project for Andy actually, and an internal a project for Andy, and I was like, I can't get Claude ChatGPT to do anything. Whatever, I'll just go over to Claude. I like Claude, but it's probably my secondary tool, right? And so I
Mhm.
went over to Claude, and I couldn't get Claude to do anything, and I had to laugh because I thought, yeah, Claude is bogged down, and maybe Gemini was too. I didn't go to check Gemini, but Claude was completely bogged down because it got all the flow of people
Right.
from ChatGPT. Now, how many was that? Was that a significant amount? I look, Artifacts was really innovative, but but ChatGPT came out quickly with Canvas, which does similar stuff, not the same, because you could run simple Python examples inside of Claude, and I think that's just something that ChatGPT started talking about, that you could do Python simple
Yeah.
Python scripts.
It wasn't quickly. We were talking about artifacts back in July. And
several months,
Canvas didn't come out in
September, October.
ChatGPT, yeah,
Yeah.
until a little later. And it didn't, like, Artifacts was really about we're amazing coding, right? And so you
Mhm.
can write the code, we can do whatever you want to see, and then we can run it within the system. Canvas, I think, first came out as a writing assistant, right? Like you could edit in line
It's more like
within
a Google Doc, a live Google Doc.
GPT,
Yeah.
and then they added the code. So yeah,
Yeah.
but you're right. I don't think I think that example is totally true because ChatGPT went down, everybody went to Claude, and I think fewer people went to Gemini. So Claude is definitely number 2 in the heavy I use ChatGPT every
Yeah, every
day
day. Yeah.
kind of crew.
Yeah. There was definitely a panic that day of people who thought, like, they probably were thinking in their head, like, "I use AI a little bit for my job," and then it went down and they were like, "I use AI for everything." You know? Like, I think there was probably a realization there of I felt it. I was working after hours, so it hadn't impacted my workday, at scale, but, I was trying to do stuff for the Daily AI show, and I was like I was a stalled boat in the water. I couldn't do much of anything, and eventually I had texted, Andy, and I said, "I give up. I can't even move this forward at this point with what
Yeah.
I wanted to work on the project and stuff like that." Okay, Beth, I think this next one it's at least attributed to you. You can tell me if you remember saying this or not. You were saying that real world success stories showing clear ROI will convince hesitant businesses to adopt AI solutions. So I did put this in Perplexity before you give me your answer because I want to hear yours first. This is just some of the things that Perplexity brought back. It says multiple studies confirm positive ROI from AI investments. And these are all cited, but I'll just tell you what they are, and then I would have to go to the citations to validate them. But 85% of IT decision makers report progress in AI strategy implementation. 47% of companies already achieve positive ROI from AI investments. Another one says Google Cloud research showed 70% of UK firms seeing positive ROI in at least one use case. And then there's a Microsoft/IDC study revealing $3.7 ROI for every dollar invested in generative AI. Now, these are from two sources. There's two sources here that Perplexity is doing on there. Might just be blog articles, whatever. But that aside, Beth, what is your take on, do you think businesses have in fact seen positive ROI and are now more heavily leaning towards AI in 2024? Or are they still thinking this is just like, it's already, you get to the articles that say, is AI already on the downfall? Are people already done with it?
Right.
Those stories.
Well, my first snarky answer is if Microsoft's research says that people are getting $3+ for every dollar spent, like imagine if it was good, right? Like, I mean, this would be so much better. This would be an amazing story that we would be delighted to tell. So, Microsoft, please, maybe 2025 is your year. I would say that yes, that we've seen incremental moves in that direction, but we were talking about the stat the other what is time in the age of AI the other week, I believe. That's 6%. It's like 6% of enterprises, still really small. It's not even double digits, have really embraced AI in a way that is actually transforming their business, right? Transforming the processes and transforming the feedback and the ROI that they can get from having a bigger market or having your human employees do more human face things that are important, those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. I still think that's really, really, really small. Thanks, Justin, for for props for the snark. Yeah, so I think I was thinking it would be more. I definitely was in that, like, how can you not see that this is like a sea change? And of course, like, it doesn't really matter if the Titanic sees that it's a sea change, it's still going to move slowly.
Yeah, listen, I spend outside of the Daily Eye show, I spend 40 hours a week, sometimes more otherwise, playing the role of an AI consultant. And I mean, of course, you know that, Beth and Jimmy, you know that. I probably don't talk about it as much as I should on the show, but it's scaled consulting. Scale Consulting is a sales consulting company. what I do is I consult sales teams all around the world on implementing AI strategies,
Right.
tools. We've built I've built all sorts of different tools and resources through AI, everything from custom GPTs to resources like prompt libraries specifically for sales. We've done some more customized stuff for companies, but again, for sales. That's where my brain is. So usually when I'm giving examples, it has something to do with sales. So I will say this is not like a confirmed number, but I am quite literally, me or my CEO, Jake Dunlap, are on calls all the time. I'm pretty plugged into sales teams in 2024. And yes, it is still a bit like the analogy I give about when I owned the CrossFit, where early on in CrossFit, I'd be like, it's not a Bowflex. It's actually a gym with a membership that costs way more than your current membership. And there was a lot that had to be said up front about owning a CrossFit gym and why you should pay me $115 a month back then in 2011 to come join my gym that was 4x, 5x more expensive than somewhere else. Then I had to explain to them what the value props were, the pain points they had, and I had to win them over in a sales way, right? I was trying to get people to join my gym. And we literally started with one. I had one athlete when I first started, and he was my landlord. So like his an asterisk on that one. Thank you, Frank. But the what I want to say to that is that's the way I feel like we started in 2024. There was a lot of here is what it is. Now let me tell you, if I still have your ear, here's how I can help you. As you would expect in 2024, I'm having more conversations starting with you are aware of AI and you think it has potential to help you. And so that's much farther along in the conversation. And what it allows me to do, not that I'm our primary salesperson, that's more again like Jake and other people at the company. But when I am talking to people, I'm able to dive in a little bit quicker to the ROI stuff. I'm like, let me show you some examples of what this does. And their eyes light up and they say, oh, I can prospect with a high level of personalization in 3 minutes instead of 45. That's a simple concept. But if you weren't understanding even what AI was, and you thought it was stealing your data, which is kind of where we came into 2024, different conversations to be had. So anyway, that's all I would say on it is I don't have numbers, but if I'm just going off of like the conversations I'm having with sales teams, large and small, mostly medium-sized businesses, so 20, 30 reps on a team, these are the kind of conversations I'm having with CROs and stuff like that. So I definitely think this is true. But
Yeah.
to your point, Beth, like, have we really seen it? Are people really bought in? Is the adoption truly there? Are businesses convinced that there is an ROI benefit here? Or are they like skeptical because of things like Copilot, where they have perhaps invested money already and um already seeing write-offs? Like they're just not going to see a return
Right.
on investment for it. And if Copilot is where you started because somebody at Microsoft told you this is going to be great, you kind of ruined it for a lot of the rest of us. Because now I have to tell you that that's more of an exception to the rule. There's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't be the solution for you, and they told you differently. This is what I think you should do. But I'm already backpedaling, trying to fix the problems of somebody who sold them something differently.
Right.
I think there's a bit of that going to be happening in 2025.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to our 2025 predictions in Monday, so definitely come back for that show. I want to go back because I know Brian said at the beginning we were influenced by the fact that our prediction show for 2024 was during the time that Sam had been let go before he
Mhm.
had been brought back. But in relation to that, I predicted that there was so much loyalty at OpenAI that the company would follow him wherever he ended up,
Mhm.
and that has been wrong, right? He came back. There was all of that, but significant people have left in
Mhm.
2024, and like Andy, if he were here, I think often says like this is sort of normal attrition. People have been there for a really
That's
long
what I was
time,
thinking. Yeah.
but it isn't like everyone is so loyal to Sam and the mission that no one is jumping ship. right? Logan Fitzpatrick left OpenAI to go to Google. Andre Karpathy came back and then left during this time. Mira, right? Mira left. Hang on, let me go here. Mira Murati, she was chief technical officer.
Mm-hmm.
Jan Leike was super alignment co-lead. Ilya has the sort of like an asterisk on this
Mm-hmm.
because they announced his leaving the company
Right.
in, I believe, May of 2024. Now there was some question about what was happening before that. Chris Clark, Diane Yoon, Pavel Izmailov, Leopold Aschenbrenner was also part of the super alignment team. We did a whole show on that. He did not leave of his own accord. He was fired, presumably for the things that we did the show on, right? Like being sort of a whistleblower of some things that he was very concerned about. William Saunders, Daniel Coco Taggio. Sorry, Daniel. I'm terribly sorry. I should have tried that before I read it. But just to say that there has been an exodus, and in seemingly kind of like significant ways. These are significant people in the team. A bunch of them are co-founders. I believe there's Sam and one other person are the only co-founders of the original 11 team that are still with OpenAI. So
That's a good point.
yeah, so it's not like, oh, everybody, like it's horrible. There's a whole other story of OpenAI hiring Google's AI professionals,
Right.
right? So like there's a sub story in there. It's not like they're hurting for talent, but at the same time, the prediction was everyone would stay because no one would leave Sam or the OpenAI mission, and that was not true in 2024.
You know what's interesting about that, Beth, and then we'll move on here. And I want to bring in Andy's comment too, because again, Andy is providing the facts as if he was on the show, which I love. Thank you, Andy, for being in the comments. But what I wanted to say is, you know what? Weirdly, Beth, I think the 12 days of OpenAI really helped OpenAI. Now, you may one day over the other, but you know what it did? It opened up to all these maybe they've been there forever. Like we saw some of the same faces, but for the most part, it was a rotating cast. It wasn't just
Mhm.
Sam. It wasn't
No.
the Sam company. And I kind of think, I don't know if that was in their thought process at all. They were just probably thinking, oh, these are the right people to clearly have at the table. They're the experts on Canvas or whatever they were talking about that day or the dev days. But like, I really think that's going to help them. And we'll talk about it maybe on Monday, but I'm thinking I have a little bit of a prediction that's involved with that. And I have to kind of formulate what that is. And I'll bring that up on Monday's show when we predicted to 2025. But I do think it's significant. I think the 12 days of OpenAI were significant for more than just what was released those particular days. Okay, I want to bring in Andy's comment really quick. This is going back to our ROI prediction. He said a recent Goldman Sachs report, which reveals that only 6.1% of the US companies have successfully incorporated artificial intelligence into their operations as of the fourth quarter of 2024. This figure represents a slight increase from 5.9 in the previous quarter. And so my thing on that would be like, only follow-up question was like, what is it like successfully incorporated? I'd love to see more of like a built out definition on that and what exactly that successfully means. Because I think there's all sorts of way that you can implement AI or AI, ROAOIO. Yeah, just throw all the letters in there.
EIEIO.
Yeah, exactly. AI. I think there's lots of ways that they can implement.
Stop hitting the stream. Sorry.
in the little ways. Okay, so let's move on. We're gonna maybe sort of rapid fire some of these, Beth and Jimmy. I know Jimmy's working hard in the background. He's with us, but I know Jimmy, you've had your focus has been some other things, but I want to make sure I'm including you here. Okay, we'll try to do this one a little bit quicker. Apple, known for playing the long game. I think this is yours. could enter the market with a powerful AI offering, leveraging its history with Siri and its ability to acquire technology it lacks. So, Jimmy, I think you might have been talking about Apple may come in 2024 with a language model. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I was trying to think of where your head was, and I'm thinking, oh, was he saying Apple would have a competitor to like a 4.0 or a ChatGPT? So, considering it has Jimmy, aka Jimmy, Jimmy is Jimmy in Slack, and anytime we do any sort of transcripts, but the Jimmy, do you think that happened, Jimmy? Do you feel like Apple entered the market with a powerful AI offering?
All right, I'll say it's 50-50. All right. It wasn't yes, I got it right versus no, it was completely off. The indicators that I saw was that they were starting to release many papers to help establish the kind of AI tech that they were going to integrate within the overall ecosystem, right? We saw how they had papers that were talking about how the OS would recognize what's on the screen and different layers and things like that. So, well, I would have liked there to be a Apple Foundation model. They instead took a route of, we want to go from the results side of things. So they created Apple Intelligence instead, and this is the gathering of various elements, to form their whole platform, or to increase the AI capabilities of their platform, and that's essentially what it came down to, right? Was it a frontier model? No. Did they try to explain how they were going to integrate different things, and they made privacy their big selling point and all those kinds of things? Yes. Do I like? I did like that. They were fairly reserved in the AI hype sphere with what they announced that Apple Intelligence would do. And they essentially said, hey, we're going to start integrating some other models, which they did. And OpenAI, 12 Days of AI,
like day 7 was
day 7. Yeah, it was basically the Apple
whatever day that was,
talking about how ChatGPT is integrated with iOS. They showed off those emoji things, right? Yep. For some, that I'm sure that's a quality of life upgrade and things like that. I think the most interesting thing for me was when they described how data would be accessed, at what times would models be external models or third-party data be accessed, and how that functions within their own data center ecosystem. I found that really interesting because it sounds super complicated, and they laid out exactly how that was going to operate, but not the function that make it work.
Right. Like this is the same comment that I made for Microsoft, right? Like you took a very different approach. You like tried to set expectations much lower, and yet you still disappointed, right? Because you aren't understanding the interface that we want to be able to use. Just make Siri smarter, right? I mean, like, how do you not have focus group after focus group saying, like,
I think it
just a tiny little bit of upgrade? Just if you know that I'm driving in the car, and you know that I'm driving in the car, don't ask me to unlock the screen. Don't, right? I mean, there's just like some simple stuff. Sorry, slight rant. I will calm down now.
But you're completely right. You're completely right. See, there is that definite disconnect, but I also think that's probably where their largest gaps were. And for Apple in particular, they literally stopped doing their electric vehicle program and dumped the remainder of that $2 billion into AI. So it's a lot of catch up, you know, like Google's at the near the end of 2024, those, let's say the last 6 months of 2024 for Google was tons of catch up, and now seems to be at you know, up there running evenly with the race. Yeah, cross your fingers. So I think we did one thing we will definitely have for each year here is from September to December, nobody in the AI sphere can take a day off because, and everybody does stealth drops, and then they do all of these crazy things like maximum attention. Early in the year, yeah, sure, maybe, but that autumn and winter, yeah,
which is why, Jimmy, I'm glad that we're doing our 2025 prediction show 3 days before the end of the year, because I think we did it a little early last year, and like clearly, obviously, the OpenAI drama and all that played out. But yeah, we know that there was some big drops between our predictions in a year, which those are important. Those affect our thought process or whatever. So I mean, I'm looking forward to Monday's show to see what everybody's predicting on there. I want to bring in Andy's comment really quick. Apple took a different approach, realizing that their vast user base only needed simple AI, not frontier models, and architected a solution that escalated complex requirements to partner AIs. So the only thing, and then with Jude and Justin and Greg was saying no, he didn't think AI Apple got there in 2024, but they're coming. And then they were saying Jude said Apple AI is well positioned but lackluster so far. Justin said Apple's 24 AI release is underwhelming with features that need more work to impress. Good ideas though. One day we'll be able to we will get a usable Siri, aka Lady Wiretap, with a laughing emoji there. I would say this. I'll just add this to the Apple, and then I think we have one or two more that I'd like to get to here. One of them is from Andy, so I want to make sure we bring that in. Is that I have no qualms with where Siri got to so far. I did upgrade to the the iPhone 16, just so I would have whatever came out for Apple Intelligence, which, by the way, I didn't want to interrupt you, Jimmy, but there was no mistake that Apple Intelligence also has the initials AI, right? That's a very Apple thing to do that everybody kind of laughed at him and like, yeah, that's an Apple thing because now, you know, AI, but also Apple Intelligence.
But then come with the goods, right? I mean, it's a great pivot. It's a great joke. I mean, all of that come with the goods.
I think they just didn't get as far as I thought they would. So I agree with you, Jimmy. Like they didn't get as far as I thought they would in 2024. But I am happy with I think they do have the right approach. Like I think it's slower than I expected. I expected my phone to already have all the capabilities. But it does connect to ChatGPT. It will be able to connect to Gemini pretty soon here, maybe other models. I do see a world. I'll hold my prediction for 2025 for Mondays, so I don't ruin it. I would say I'm with you. I think 50-50 is the right way to say that, Jimmy. Underwhelming in some cases, maybe a good foundation for future cases, but didn't really hit the ball out of the park in 2024 for that. I think that's where I kind of land on that one. Okay, let me bring up at least one more based on our time here. I know we started late, so I'm looking at the clock here. We can go a few more minutes, but NVIDIA competitors. I believe this was from Andy, who said companies like Microsoft and Apple may challenge NVIDIA's dominance by developing their own AI hardware solutions by late 2024 or 2025. So that one's interesting, and I'll give time for Andy, if you have a chance, Andy, to put any comments you want in there. I did also use a little bit of Perplexity to look into that. We have had things like AMD's launch of the MI350 series that competes with NVIDIA's H200. We had multiple companies entering the market. Obviously, Intel is trying to come back and get their market share back that they lost. AWS, Amazon, Google. Then you says it has startups like Cerebras, Grok, D-Matrix emerging with specialized AI chips. So I don't know. What do you guys think? But I think, yes, I think Andy nailed this one. I mean, there has definitely been competitors to the dominance of NVIDIA. But does NVIDIA 4 days before the end of the year still have the lion's share and dominance?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the concept, I think the base premise of that there will be competitors, 100%. I mean, we've already seen some of the big stuff that Andy's talked about is the photonic chips and the photonic technology that's coming out. There's the Google just released the quantum, you know,
Mhm.
with Willow.
With Willow. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and then all the other, and then the major manufacturers like AMD coming out with their own solutions,
Mhm.
you know, of course. And then, of course, by the end of the year, NVIDIA goes, oh, here's an edge AI computer. It's called the Jetson. It's
Right.
$250.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good point.
put this at the end. Put this at the edge where it connects closest to your user. So, yeah, I now do I think we will NVIDIA lost any of its dominance? I don't think so. Not yet.
Right.
Because there was it was announcements during the 2024 for me, but we're not seeing shipping, right? Not seeing like everything's gonna be a combat between the two chip manufacturers for data centers and things like that. We'll see what happens. You know, Google announced their new their new tensor chips and or is it Trillium chips or maybe it's AWS with Trillium chips. They all sound the same now. But yeah, so 2025, yeah, tune in for Monday so that you know
I
we
know
can.
it's hard to not like
It's hard
answer this
not to
and then
give the
also make
other
a
side
prediction.
of the. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
I'm feeling the pain there, Jimmy. I'm like, that's a Monday comment. Andy said Amazon Trillium, Google TPUs, AAPL M series. I don't know that one. And then he also said they are foreclosing on dependence. They are foreclosing on dependence on NVIDIA.
Right.
yeah.
Jude says, will NVIDIA continue to dominate and strong as a strong investment? I think so. Um,
Well, the other sorry, the other
no,
side
go,
of
go,
that,
go.
the other side of that is that demand is still growing.
Right.
So as other chips come online, it doesn't mean that it's cutting out of NVIDIA's pie because everybody needs more.
Right.
So I just wanted to pop in. Brian, what did I cut you off saying?
No, nothing. I did just stream of thought there. No, I think you nailed it. You covered it. So look, Andy was right. I will say that. I think Andy, that was a good prediction. There have been more people it's cut into their dominance, but it has not eliminated their dominance, I think is where we would say today. And then we'll talk about Monday. Maybe Andy will have another prediction on will that continue into 2025, or is 2025 the year that one of these other players makes a significant impact, whether it's Amazon's Trillium or others. Amazon Trillium is an interesting one because of the Anthropic deal. That's really interesting. So yeah, more to be said about that for sure. But that's an interesting one for sure. Greg saying Monday will be cool. Yeah, I hope so. I hope our podcast platform works and that we're all able to be here on Monday. That's what I'm hoping for over the weekend. Just a simple fix of Top Studio Streamlabs. Okay, I think we have time for one more. You ready for one more here?
Yeah, while you're pulling it up. So we're bringing our predictions to Monday's show. You bring your predictions too.
Absolutely.
We would love to hear what your predictions are, and we'll pop some of those on the screen like we're doing now. And hopefully, when I put something on the screen, it will only happen once and not like the stuttery 3 times that's going on. Brian, what are you teeing up?
Hey, I have a prediction for 2025. We're going to make some updates to the to the show and platform and how we do things. That's my prediction for 25. I feel pretty confident saying that's going to be true when we do this show in a year. I'm coming out of the gate with one I already know is a winner. All right, it looks like me. I think I was the one that said this, and it was just basically saying more companies may launch competitive AI platforms, leading to a fragmentation and creating opportunities for consultants to navigate the ecosystem. Okay, just trying to put on Brian's brain from a year ago. What I was saying is like there would be opportunities for consultants to do a lot of good for companies by saying, hey, this is the right tool for this. This is the right tool for this. And as an expert in the field, let me help you navigate that. So I'll give him a quick answer to this because we got to wrap up. But I think that's maybe a miss, with the exception of something like a Perplexity, which didn't necessarily come on the scene in 2024. It did for me, where it was, I don't really know where in Perplexity, like where it actually started and how many, we'd have to look into that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, or dates, but I would say Perplexity sort of is the exception to that, where I'm doing courses literally, like I'm doing my second cohort of a 6-week course, and I'm doing them privately for sales companies and sales departments. That course teaches people how to, not only sales folks, not only how to use ChatGPT, but also Claude and Perplexity. And then more importantly, how to integrate and use them together to get the best out of all three tools. That is not something I was doing at the beginning of 2024. So in that sense, yes, I kind of feel like I'm as self-fulfilling, like I'm doing what I just said. But I don't also, I think the reason I say it's false is because ChatGPT is doing, or OpenAI rather, is doing a very good job of creating a larger and larger moat and ensuring that we want to just stay inside the ChatGPT ecosystem. They're going to make it easy for us. It's going to be easy to do. We're going to get more things like Canvas that just make it, and they're going to integrate and connect through APIs so that our documents can get uploaded and updated and blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to do more agentic workflow stuff. And I think in 2020, that's a prediction. Stop in there. Beth, Jimmy, your quick answer to that. Did we see more fragmentation where there would be some inroads for consultants to be the experts across many, many different platforms?
I think we did, in part because it's less that it's so complicated, although it is complicated. I think part of the inroads that we've seen for consultants is you want someone who's paying attention, right? You want someone whose job and attention can be devoted to this. It's not something that they also do. They don't also run the network at your company. They don't also they're not also head of, like you want Brian for sales AI,
Mhm.
because none of your salespeople are doing sales things, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
this is something that Brian can completely specialize in because it's his total focus. Like
Yeah.
I think we've seen that kind of inroad.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's fair. Cassidy's of the world and things like that are part
yeah,
of that, right? Yeah. Go ahead,
exactly.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Cassidy like a fragmentation. To if the premise is, would the fragmentation of all of these various platforms and offers provide the inroads? I think there's still so little awareness and uptick from the majority of companies that it's not so much the fragmentation that's giving the inroads, it's the growth and awareness. I think that's just speeding up what the opportunities for AI consultants and their specialized fields or generalization as well. It's just the fact that the slow molasses that is monolith organizations for large, especially large enterprises, is finally sped up to enough to where there's enough awareness to where everyone's like, oh, we need one of those. Okay,
Yeah.
get me that for sales. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's dead on. Okay, look, so we've covered quite a bit. I think we did okay. I think if I was just to score us on a scorecard, I think we did okay. I mean, some of them were more generalized, which is easier to hit, let's be honest, than if we had put a specific data point on any one of them and missed or hit on that. Those are harder. But I think we did okay for 2024. There were some misses in there. There's some 50-50s in there. There's some maybe if this happens things in there, which is the way it's going to go. Like we said on Monday, we are going to come back and we're going to do it again, but we're going to give you our 2025 predictions. So we're only a few days out from the first of the year. What does our team think is going to happen in 2025? We will all individually come out with our predictions and we'll bring them to the show, which is fun because a lot of times I don't know what Beth's prediction is going to be. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that's one of mine too. Or sometimes it's just something I would have never even thought about, which is fun. You guys are here along for the ride along with us. A lot of times we're learning and finding out live with you, which is why this show is so much fun. So thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you for hanging out with us, even though we started a few minutes late. Well, hopefully that will all be fixed by Monday. We're working on it. Emails have been sent. strongly worded, Discord messages have been sent, and we will try to get this all worked out for you. Thank you, Jimmy, for working on that in the background. Thank you, Andy, who just couldn't get in. He was here today, but being in the comments. And thank you to everybody else. All right, have a great weekend, and we will see you guys again back on Monday. And I think we probably don't have any outro, do we?
We do not.
So we're just going to keep talking, and then it's just going to stop. But bye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see.